What's up, friends and fam? It's Brian Castrillo, and I just watched episode 3 of The Terminalist, and my goodness, this show just keeps getting better and better. Every episode is amazing and mind-blown, but before I get into this episode, I want to talk a little bit about who Jack Carr was, because I felt, because this series has been so good, I want to learn more about who the author was. And, of course, he's a best-selling author. And in my description, I'm going to include his website so you can see this information I'm about to tell you. And I'm going to also edit my for the videos for episode 1 and 2. I'm going to put his website in there too. But I want to read something from his website that kind of talks about who he is and basically what he's done. So, Jack Carr, and I quote, led special operation teams as a team leader, platoon commander, troop commander, and task unit commander. Over his 20 years in naval special warfare, he transitioned from an enlisted SEAL sniper to a junior officer leading assault and sniper teams in Iraq and Afghanistan, to a platoon commander practicing counterinsurgency in the southern Philippines, to commanding a special operations task unit in the most Iranian-influenced section of southern Iraq, throughout the tumultuous drawdown of U.S. forces. This man is a fucking hero, and he has done some things that I can only dream of. Now, I was also in the U.S. Navy, and I have always had a deep admiration for Navy SEALs, and when I went into boot camp, that's kind of what I want to do, but I got offered this position on the USS Constitution, aka Old Ironsides in Boston. And I grew up in Massachusetts, so that was my hometown. I love history, and it was just, there's no way I could say no to that. And if you like history like I do, check out her website. Look up USS Constitution. I promise you, it's really cool. But back to him. So I learned that The Terminalist is not the first of this book about Commander James Reese. So there's actually 5. Now, whether there could be more or not, I'm not sure. But this man is very talented, and I could see him producing some more. So the first one is The Terminalist. Then book 2 is True Believer. Then they have Savage Son, The Devil's Hand, and then the most recent, In the Blood, which was released April 12th of this year, is the 5th book. Now, is there going to be another one? I'm not sure. Maybe he will be releasing one. He could be writing one. I don't know. I don't have that answer. But what I do know is that there's 5 books, and in 3 episodes, I absolutely love the character James Reese. I absolutely love the writing. I love the directing, the acting. Everything is mind blown. So I can only hope for more, and I can only hope that these 4 books are produced into other series, and we get a season 2, 3, 4, and 5. But let's get into this episode 3. Now, we start the episode now, and James Reese is, forgive me, my voice is a little hoarse at the moment, but we start the episode where James Reese is basically burning all the evidence of his previous assassination, where he took out the NCIS man who was trying to kill him or set him up. Now, of course, in that episode, we learn that to look for a Saul Agnon, which we figure out in this episode who that really is. Now, this Saul Agnon is the VP of asset management for a company named Capstone Industries. This man, played by Sean Gunn, is a seedy, really shady kind of businessman, but also absolutely brilliant. The man can close deals, and he's helped his company make a lot of money and make others make a lot of money. Not very well liked, but the man is good at what he does, and we learn that he's working for a man called Steve Horn, and we see this Steve Horn. I'm assuming he's probably ex-Special Forces, because we see him practicing with his own team in this episode, and just going through like these rooms like they're in Afghanistan or Iraq, knocking on doors, just kind of preparing, and he's very hard on himself about the time that it takes him and how well he did. But and we know he's a billionaire. But we haven't learned a lot about him just yet. But now, Katie Burnick, who is the journalist, she was talking to her boss, and she told him that she found out that he has a brain tumor, and that this story could be a lot bigger. But Reese tells her that he wants to meet her, and she of course says that she wants to meet with him, but she promises her boss a story later in the day. So she meets up with him at this restaurant, and this is a really great scene. He gets there and he sees her sitting in a certain seat, and he goes to her. He's like, "That's my seat." And at first I wasn't sure what he's doing, but then I'm like, oh wait, this is a Navy SEAL guy. He wants to be able to see all points of interest. And he's like, "I don't want to order anything." And she's like, "No, he'll have this," which I thought was kind of funny. But there's a mirror there that's just sitting there, which he must have put that in there earlier. But she's talking to him about the how no one told him that he had this brain tumor, but he notices this guy coming through, and I guess when you're in that level and of operational awareness, you notice everything, and he realized that this guy was up to no good. And he tells her, and this is where it's really good, because in the first 2 episodes we're having trouble deciphering whether or not this is really happening or it's just in his head because of his PTSD, which is clearly happening to him too. But he says to her, Katie Burnick, played by Constance Wu, who has been absolutely phenomenal in this role, and he takes her to where his Jeep is, and sure enough, that guy comes around, and he sees him in the rearview window, and she's like, "So, is this really just in your head, or is there actually someone?" Because she's not believing. She's still under the impression that he is PTSD. He's having flashbacks, and he's not all there. But he rams like really fast into this guy's car. And of course, James Reese, played by Chris Pratt, also has been phenomenal. He's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry," and then all of a sudden the guy starts shooting. So of course Reese takes him out. And inside he has this envelope, this file, which is a professional hit list. So now we know that he was definitely taken out, or they tried to take out Reese, but obviously that's why his family is dead. But in the process, when he tries to shoot him, it almost hits Katie. So now she is now realizing that this is a real deal. Like this is really happening. And so he tells her afterwards, and he gives her, shows her the professional hit list, and then she's like, "Well, tell me who, what you have on Capstone Industries, and then I'll find everything I need to." And he basically tells her, "Go and hide and go somewhere safe. I apologize." And so she ends up having to tell her boss, she can't come. Doesn't tell her why, and she goes off to this beautiful house, which I love it. Big picture windows near the ocean, but that just has me worried that something may happen to her later on if this is where she's staying. But absolutely gorgeous house. I love it. Now, of course, James Reese is in hiding. He goes to this little hotel, and his brother, played by Taylor Kitsch, comes in, brings him a burrito, which he's scarfing down. He's like, "Chill, man, take a breath," because he's eating that down, and he gives him the information. But they have this conversation, just making sure he's like, are we on the same page? Are you doing the? So they have that moment, which I thought was a really, really kind of cool moment. But they kind of go over the operational information, that what they want to do next. And Taylor Kitsch is going to follow, or basically learn about Saul Agnon, and he goes to this golf, golf event where there's like professional golfers. There's all kinds of different golfers in some kind of tournament or whatnot. And he's paying attention to him, figures out where, what his next move is, and he's finds out there's this party at this house. They go to this house, this party's there, and we see, Saul Agnon be the brilliant closer that he is, and he got this big deal. But that was the last thing he was going to do, because insert James Reese, who comes in, he comes in, and this guy has this little dog, which I was wondering, like, how is he going to get to him? This dog's going to go, but he waited until he was, Saul went into the bathroom to shower. He had a little bone or a steak or something that he gave to the dog to keep him busy. And this moment is absolutely terrifying because, and I'm sure Jack Carr has some great stories of interrogating, and I don't know if, he may not be able to say that because, considering the type of job he had, but seeing how this unfolds, can only lead you to imagine what type of moments that he had to, Jack Carr had to be in when he had to interrogate people or what Navy SEALs have to do. And that's why I said he is a fucking hero. But seeing this was absolutely terrifying, and I would have hated to be in that guy's shoes, Saul Agnon. But the character, what he did, fuck him. So I don't really feel bad for him, but if you looked at the details and how he got him to talk, and just watched how Sean Gunn played this role, like, he looked terrified. There was a moment where he had like his mouth, tied up, and then you see James Reese standing up, or Chris Pratt standing above him. He's like, there he is, and then he starts puking through it, and his eyes were bulging, and it was like the details that went into this scene right here were absolutely amazing. But before this scene, Chris Pratt's character goes into the strip club, and he's like, I want to party, and he tells her that he has headaches, and man, this guy thinks of everything, and he gets her to give him some drugs, some methadone, which he ends up using to create a cocktail to take him out later. But not before he got 3 important bits of information. We learned he basically gave up because the sniveling coward that he was in there. He was not. I don't think this guy Steve Horn's going to be like him, but he basically was like the coward that you expect him to be. But he gave him 3 bits of important information. He gave up Steve Horn, and if you go back to a scene where he actually spoke to Steve Horn, he was worried that Reese was looking for him because he told him that the guy who went to kill him was dead, and Reese was not, and he told him that the NCIS knew who he was, so he was worried about it. But the Steve Horn guy said he basically didn't care. But now Reese has his name. He also has the name of Marcus Boykin, and Marcus Boykin is the person who Saul Agnon hired to kill his family. And then whatever Steve Horn is behind, it's based on a project called RD4895. And we don't know what that is. We'll maybe find out that in the next episode. But this was just a very well done, detailed scene. Like, you got to pay attention to little nuances from, Saul and of course James. Just the way this was done was absolutely beautiful. There's one other scene that I do want to go back on, and that was Secretary Hartley, who is the Secretary of Defense, played by Jean Triplehorn, who has also been great. Now, I'm trying to read into her character, but I'm having a little trouble. But in this episode, one thing that was kind of interesting, she's basically telling the military powers that be that mental health is very important, and she wants to, make sure they're taken care of. And one of the things she says is that after like one mission forced them into retirement, and the guys are talking about operational readiness, how they're going to do this, and it's a big fight. She says, no, I don't care. This is what we're doing. And of course, I'm thinking, like, is this because she's worried about getting people out of there? Does she have something behind this? But then you see one of her guys come out and he calls someone on an encrypted phone, and he basically says something's about to go down. So, and he's worried that it has to do something with James. So there feels like there's a lot of working units. People not trusting everybody, but maybe the Secretary of Defense is good, but I'm not 100% on that right now. But anyways, this series, this episode, fucking amazing. If you are not watching this, you need to jump on this. This is so good. Again, like I said earlier in the video, I'm putting in Jack Carr's website where you can see and you can purchase his books if you want. I'm going to put them in episode 1 and 2 of mine, so that way you can find it. But there is one more scene. This is at the end of the episode, and you see Ben Edwards, Taylor Kitsch, and James Reese, played by, of course, Chris Pratt, and he gives, that information that we got, those 3 bits of information to Ben Edwards, Taylor Kitsch's character. And he's like, do you want information or do you want blood? Because just before that, they're talking about how he doesn't understand why, the girls had to be taken out. And Chris Pratt saying, well, they basically needed something that people can digest. And what I mean by that is that if they went into just assassinating him, that would look bad. People would be talking. But in this case, it looks like, he went crazy. He killed his family. So they have excuses ready made. So now a lot of this stuff is starting to unravel and heads are about to roll. But I'm losing my voice if you can't tell. But what did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comments. Check out Jack Carr's website. As always, I love you guys. Let's talk about this, and I'll see you in the next episode.